All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DFS Army's Tournament Strategy Show, where on this one, we look back at last night. We also look at today's slate and, we try to make sure that everyone's good to go from a strategic standpoint. And then, of course, on the pre-lock show at 5:30 p.m. later today, which is for VIP members only, we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive on how we're actually running the slate. And then today, I'm going to be doing a 20 max. So I'll do that instead of the usual 150. If you are interested in being a VIP member here, definitely do click the link in the description. Feel free to use promo code BDUBB, BDUB for a 10% discount. But anyway, let's get back to today and how we're feeling. How are you doing today, B-Dubs?
Doing pretty good. Last night definitely went better than Tuesday night, so always good coming off of a good night.
Yeah, a nice bounce back. Wasn't really expecting it just because like large games or large slates, like a 13 game gamer was not my favorite spot, but I was glad that we had a decent bounce back. It was profitable, but it wasn't like a crazy takedown, which I'll take given the last 2 days. How was it for you?
Yeah, same. No crazy profit, but it was positive night, so that's always good in my book.
Agreed. And good to see you in here, guys. Let's look at the 100K winning lineup from last night. And I think this speaks to our results. We were on a lot of these guys. TJ McConnell, the DS, bet out a crap ton. You were getting 80 to 90% if you just ran it. B-Dubs, I know we went kind of back and forth on this. We lowered him to around 40%, which was still decent leverage. We were still over the field on him. Any regrets?
I mean, I wish I didn't lower him, but we were just so unsure how he was going to play. So 40 was just what I was comfortable with. And like you said, it was still amazing leverage. So I wouldn't have done anything different if I went back in time.
Right there with you. And he wasn't starting, and that was kind of like the biggest question mark there, right? So still awesome spot. We were on it, over the field on him. DeJounte Murray was a leverage play for you. TK talked on this show yesterday about making him a core play. So we were all over DeJounte. So we were good to go there. Shaden Sharp, were you on him at all?
I had a little bit, but not as much as I would like.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you. Kyle Kuzma, I know we had some exposure to too. Like, were you around field weight under at all?
Yeah, I was around field weight on Kuz.
Yep, same here. And then Bagley was a core play for us. I didn't think he was going to make the nuts, to be honest with you, but he did. So at least that worked out. McCollum, we were both over the field on. He was a core play for both of us.
Yep.
Awesome. So we're on that. Lonnie Walker and LeBron James. Lonnie, I had some exposure to, but not enough. LBJ, I didn't have much of, but the DS kind of popped him in there a little bit, but I still should have got some more and forced the issue. Was it a similar situation for you, or were you over on Lonnie?
I got a little bit of Lonnie. He kind of started falling off. Once we started getting some of that news. So wish I had more of him, but I'm fine with what I had.
Yeah, agreed. All in all, interesting slate, good slate, but let's move on to today's slate. Dixon, man. we remembered. That was the Torn Prince late news and the Burke late news. That was ridiculous. I really have no idea what happened there, but hopefully we don't have that issue today. We are kind of lacking some of the injury news at this point. I'm sure we'll probably get a good bit of it as we kind of move towards the slate. Half of the teams that are playing today played yesterday, so I think we're gonna see some interesting pieces here. We can just kind of go from there. How are you feeling about today's slate, though, Brandon?
There's some rough games on this slate. Gonna be some guys we have to play that we might not like, so it'll be interesting, I'll say.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. Philip, what's up, man? He said, "What's up, guys? Broke that losing streak last night. Got first, third, in a 300 tourney, 6 and another. Let's keep it going. Nice, man. That's freaking awesome." Agreed. Yeah, let's keep it going. Those of you who are here with us are the real ones because it's a Thursday. It's a gross 4-gamer. It's Thursday night football, so it's a little bit of a weird slate, kind of like you mentioned, B-Dubs. But like you said, let's hop right into it. Starting off with this Raptors team going up against the Sixers. Uh, there's some injury news here we can talk about. Achua's listed as TBD. Koloko's also listed as TBD. Uh, they're going up against a solid Sixers team. Is anyone standing out for you on this team? I mean, I think we have to consider guys from every game for sure.
Oh yeah. So as of now, we don't have much value. So I think you're gonna have to consider a lot of these like mid-range guys that are in like the 5 to 6K range. So few guys that are standing out here is Podol again. He looked great last night. OG, he's been kind of inconsistent, but um, again, it's a guy we're gonna have to consider at that price, and even somebody like Gary Trent, who is volatile as well. But I'm willing to go there on a short slate tonight. And then we talk about Siakam all the time. His price is finally dropping to the point to where I'm willing to take a shot on him. So depending on his ownership, which I'm hoping is low, that would be a spot I'm going to.
Yeah. I agree. I think this is a team that we definitely can't ignore on this slate, even if it is the game with the lowest game total and the widest spread. I think there's definitely some pieces here that should be interesting. I'm right there with you on Siakam. I am still kind of going back and forth between Siakam and considering Barnes. I think I'm going to kind of go with the ownership. Siakam's been our guy for a while that we target as a leverage play. He definitely has that upside, and I'm not even that concerned against Embiid and this solid Sixers team. He's had success against it before in the past, so definitely a good spot I want to target. Scotty Barnes, I'm assuming will be more of kind of like my GPP target, high upside play. I don't think he'll get a ton of ownership, but again, that's the thing we'll have to keep a close eye out for. If he does end up being super chalky, he is someone that I would consider being a little bit of an easier fade. Are you getting to Dennis at all?
I'm not opposed to it. He's been looking like super solid so far, and he smashed last night as well. So no issues if I get to some of him.
Yeah,
Well.
and literally the only starter on this team that's not playing 30 plus minutes is Jakob Poeltl. But he also has been pretty involved from just like a scoring standpoint. And at 5,900, he's probably, in my mind at least, the safest play on this team from like a floor standpoint. Do you agree with that, or am I talking crazy?
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially since Precious has been missing.
Yeah,
I think he's definitely been on the safer side.
yeah, I agree. Uh, Anyone else we should talk about? I know we've been on Boucher before. Are you interested in any of these other value options here?
Boucher would be the only guy I'd be willing to play again, especially if Precious misses again. He hasn't been smashing by any means, but again, value is kind of light as of now, so he's an option for sure.
Yeah, he's an option at 3,900. He's been averaging around 1 fantasy point a minute, which is nice, what you want to see, and not surprising at all for him. What we want to see is a slight increase in minutes. And with Chris, like, it goes back and forth. He'll surprise us when it happens. This is one of those spots where I have at least a little bit of interest, but again, not going crazy in this first game of the slate. Next up for the Sixers. Now we have a few guys that we have to pay a little bit of attention to from like a will they play standpoint, and it's pretty much all of the guys that they traded for. We have Robert Covington, who could get into the mix. He's listed as TBD. KJ Martin's listed as TBD. Marcus Morris is listed as TBD. Nicholas Batum is the only guy that they've actually listed as out. What are you doing with these guys?
So like I mentioned before, I think it's going to be the night of the mid-range guys. So one guy that's really standing out for me is Kelly Oubre. We got the news that he'll be starting, so I foresee him being a very popular play tonight. So he'll be probably my number one priority on this team. Maxey, you can never count him out. That price tag is a little tough for tonight because, like I said, value's kind of light, but he's he's playing some great basketball right now, so hard not to get some of him. And Embiid, you can never count him out too, but again, that price tag will be kind of hard to get to tonight.
Yeah. Embiid's one of those guys I want to make sure I have at least some exposure to because he's one of those true studs on this slate who's kind of playing not by himself because Maxi's there, but there's not really another stud with him or true stud, at least in my mind. So I do want to make sure I have a little bit of him tonight. I have a like on Maxi because I want to keep a close eye out for him. Like you mentioned, Maxi's been in fantastic form here lately. I don't typically love picking on the Raptors, but I think this could be a little bit of a sneaky spot for him. I hope ownership stays low. Kelly O, yeah, he's been fantastic. It's weird. His minutes have trended down, but like you mentioned, he's starting tonight, and so he's in a fantastic spot. He's been producing well all season too, which I think has surprised a lot of us, and his price hasn't really moved at all. So he's just a play that makes a lot of sense, and I'm not questioning that one at all. So whether he's popular or not, I'm going to have a crap ton. Outside of that, I think Melton is worth at least mentioning just because he sees a decent amount of minutes. If any of like Covington, Martin, Morris end up playing, I feel like Melton is probably a bit more of a stretch play. He really is in general. I feel similarly about Harris. But I know sometimes Tobias can kind of get on your radar a little bit on these short slates, so I don't want to talk bad about him too much. Anyone else you feel like we should mention here?
I'll just keep an eye out on the news. Hopefully we get some kind of news about these new guys who have been traded to this team. Because although Covington is never a beautiful play, like he's 4K and could be viable too if he sees a decent amount of minutes tonight, and some of those other guys too. So I'll be at least looking out for info on them playing.
Yeah. I really want you to be wrong about that, but I think that's a solid call, and I think probably no one's going to play him, so you probably don't have to go too crazy on it either.
Only because it's a small slate. Usually, if it's a small slate, I'm willing to play like guys like that, but bigger ones, count me out.
Yeah, that's why it's like I don't feel good pressing the button, but I think it makes a ton of sense. Jamar, nice. Glad that went well for you. Dixon, I see you, man. It looks like a lot of people in the chat are also loving Kelly here. It's just really hard not to. He definitely can burn you on occasion. He's been on teams where he doesn't do much, but that just hasn't been the case this season. So I'm not even trying to get cute with a fade there. I think it's safe to move on. Do you agree?
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have the Pistons against the Pelicans. Are you playing any of these Pistons tonight off a back-to-back?
It'll kind of be hard to get to some of these guys here. I think Duran was still questionable, so if he ends up missing, then I think we can go back to Bagley. Even though Bagley didn't have like a smash game, he also didn't do that bad. So I'd be willing to go back to him tonight. And then some of these other guys are kind of priced up. Like I've been a fan of Azar Thompson, but he finally got that price increase that he deserves. So
no more free play.
Yeah, it'll be a little harder to go there. I still think Cade is priced too high. Guess you can make a case for Killian Hayes, but I'm not a fan of that price tag either. And Jaden Ivey, he just hasn't been consistent at all. So some of these other guys will be kind of hard to get to.
I was like, Jaden Ivey, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Cade Cunningham is expensive. He's still on my radar as a potential GPP play just because he's going to be low owned, but it's not one that I'm excited about. It's one that I doubt I'll get to, but I'm thinking about it. We'll dig deeper into it and have a firm answer by the pre-lock show. Ivy's just cheap, not someone you'd be excited about. Killian Hayes is someone where if Alec Burks, who's currently listed as TBD, if he does play, that's kind of where Hayes would be a little bit more viable. If Burks doesn't play, then Hayes would be more viable. If Burks plays, Hayes isn't really on my radar. Similar situation, like you mentioned, with Duran being questionable. That's what brings Bagley into play or not into play at all. So I want to keep a close eye on that situation. It would make the slate a lot more interesting, in my opinion, if Duran doesn't play, but we'll have to keep a close eye out for it. Anyone else worth mentioning here?
If Burks ends up missing again, and I know some guys got into foul trouble too, but one guy which I'm not sure I would get here is Marcus Sasser,
Yeah.
rookie on his team, and he definitely took advantage of that extra playing time that he saw. So he might have played well enough to where he could see some extra minutes. So that might be a value punt, but just not sure if I'm willing to go there or not.
That's one of those things you can do, especially on a small slate where it's hard to get different. The numbers might not always support it, but if you can kind of play the game theory, put the coaching hat on for a little bit and see like, hey, who do I think might see more minutes than we expect? That's kind of the way you can get takedowns early on in the season, whereas people are like, what? I never saw that coming. So no, I love that. I wasn't really thinking about him at all, but especially based on what he did last night, I think there's a case to be made there. So yeah, it's weird when we were talking about it before the show too. Last night we were like, hey, slow down with the injury news. We're getting way too much. And now we're just begging. We're like, come on, somebody sit, please.
Yep.
We're begging for the value.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. All right, next up. Speaking of injury news, for the Pelicans, we have Brandon Ingram listed as TBD. This is a back-to-back for them. He didn't play last night, so we'll see if he plays today. Outside of that, no new injury news. Do you like the Pelicans today at all?
Definitely depending on whether Ingram plays or not, for sure. If he does play, I don't mind getting to some of him, and I'll still probably get some of McCollum and Valanciunas just because they're still at decent prices. If Ingram is out, then you could definitely go back to Jordan Hawkins. Yep. So he looked good again last game, so he would definitely become a priority for me if Ingram did miss.
Yeah, I mean, I know the spread isn't awfully wide. The total is a little low here, but it's still a game like you mentioned. If Ingram's out, I'm a bit more interested in it. If Ingram plays, it's going to be hard to play these guys on this slate. Maybe just to get different, taking a shot on a guy like Joe Val or CJ. Of course, Zion and Ingram can have upside. I feel like Zion's a little bit too expensive for me to get too excited about.
Yep.
If Ingram's out, I mean, Zion's purely a contrarian play. I guess on a 4-game slate, he's definitely a viable tournament play, but I feel like you're really just trying to get different by doing that. But do you hate it, though? Do you hate the Zion play if Ingram's out?
I do, because he hasn't done anything to justify his price, and he's more expensive tonight than he was last night and didn't do much last night either. So I'm kind of confused with some of DK's pricing on some of these guys.
Yeah, it's like between Sabonis and Zion and some of these other guys, I'm like, why are they so expensive? I do not get it. But I agree with you. Anyone else you feel like we should talk about on this team?
You could always make a case for Herb Jones.
Yep.
He's another one of those 5K guys. I kind of worry about upside with him, but he has shown us in the past that he can pay off that price tag. So figured he was worth the mention at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, let's see. Moving on. Magic against the Utah Jazz. For the Magic, another team that's pretty healthy on this slate. The interesting thing about the Magic, though, is that they're all pretty cheap on this slate. So they're a team that you're getting to naturally. We're also looking at the second highest total game on the slate and also the closest game spread. So just looking at the slate without seeing all of that, usually these are, well, at least the Magic in particular, they're not a team that I ever get too excited about playing. But on this slate, I feel like we're going to have to get some exposure to these guys. Who's standing out for you?
Definitely the top three would probably be Wendell Carter, Markelle Fultz, and Cole Anthony, because like I said, I think it's the night of the mid-range and they fit into that pretty well. And usually games against Utah can provide some good DFS scores, so I don't mind targeting them. Paolo and Franz always go back and forth.
Yeah.
Glad to see Paolo's price drop slightly. I still think he's a bit too expensive for what he's been doing. I would love him even more if he was down in Franz's price range, but if their ownership is low, I don't mind playing some of them as well. Then
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs is worth a mention too. He's still looking pretty solid. He played well last game again. So
I thought you dropped one guy for half
yeah,
a second, and I was like, "Oh, I have someone for you." And then you mentioned him. Yeah, Suggs has been in great form. We've been talking about him on this show a lot. Is the issue of Suggs is just he's usually hard to get to, just because there's faults here. You mentioned Anthony, and you're usually sitting there like, is Suggs going to be able to keep up the strong play? He has so far this season, and so that's why I think he's viable here. The minutes have been pretty split at the guard position here lately for this team. And so they're all priced well enough for the role that they're playing where I think they're all in play here. I think Fultz is the favorite for everyone here. He's the one I'm going to have the most exposure to, but I'm fine mixing a little bit of Anthony and Suggs into the mix as well. Wendell Carter Jr., is he someone that you think you'll end up being over on, or because I agree with you. I think this is a mid-range slate, and if you're trying to do the mid-range thing, Wendell Carter kind of just slots right in there, along with Jakob Poeltl.
yeah, he still hasn't had that smash game I've been waiting for, but I'm willing to keep going back to him because his price just keeps staying in that 5K range. So I'll definitely be going back to him tonight.
Yeah, and Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, they're a little bit harder for me to get to. Once again, they're your GPP plays on this slate. They have upside. It's just hoping they can get it done that night. And without injuries on this team, I'm just not as excited about it as I am some of the more mid-range guys here. Anyone else you think we should talk about? Like, I feel like on a game slate this size, it's okay to have exposure to guys like Mo Wags, Gary Harris, even Isaac, but those aren't plays you're really ever excited about, really.
Yeah, they're some ugly plays, but like you said, a small slate, it's worth a small shot on. Nothing I would go crazy on that, especially
Yeah.
with the lack of value we have so far.
Yeah. Ideally, we don't have to get there. Hopefully, we get some news, but worth a mention. I think the main focal point here is Fultz. Moving on, we have the Utah Jazz, who are favored in this game. No real injury news for them either, so they're looking pretty healthy. The Orlando Magic, we've been talking about it since pretty early in this season. They've been a pretty good defense this year. They've kept it close with some decent teams like the Lakers, and they've beaten the really bad teams. Where will I put the Jazz in that category? I'm leaning towards their bad team, and so that's why I like the Orlando guys a good bit. But I do think the Jazz can help keep it close. I just hope they can score enough to do well from a DFS standpoint. I am obviously already on like John Collins and Jordan Clarkson a good bit. I like them here in this matchup. Do you like them too? And if so, like, who else do you like?
Yeah, I love Clarkson tonight. He's 200 cheaper than he was last night, coming off a great game. I think
Love
he's
to
going
see
to
that.
be one of the most popular plays on the slate. So um, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a core play for me tonight. I don't know why DK hasn't raised the price on Collins yet, but not going to complain about it.
Yep.
So
Yeah. We don't have a lot of
definitely,
value. I'm happy about it.
yep, definitely going back there. And then I wish Markkinen was still in that 8K range, so it would be a little harder to get to him at 9K. But if his ownership is small, I wouldn't mind a small shot on him. And Kessler, I'll be on the fence about him just because his minutes always concerns me, and his price is going up slightly as well. So two main priorities for sure will be Collins and Clarkson.
Yeah, agreed. Carl, I feel you. Watching the Magic play just in general kind of makes my head hurt a little bit. It's just not a fun team to watch more often than not. Madness, what's up, man? DFS Army GOAT. Good to see you. Coach here, for those of you that don't know. He does a lot of the cheat sheets. Very helpful to check those out. For me on this slate, I like what you talked about. I like John Collins, like Clarkson. THT, I'm sure he'll get into some of my lines tonight, but he's not a priority for me. Kessler, I don't love the spot, but if I get some exposure naturally, I'm fine with it. Markkanen's on my radar. He's too expensive, but on this slate, I think he could have some sneaky upside. But again, I'm just keeping a close eye out for it. Not a spot that I'm super
I'm
excited about.
still mad at the Grizzlies for messing that play up last night.
That was going to be a
He was looking
fantastic
so
leverage
good.
play for you. He was crushing it. He was at, 34 at halftime, and then the blowout ruined it.
Yeah.
It was just like he was competing. They just didn't give him a chance. Didn't give him a chance. So yeah, honestly, I doubt I'll get to Markkanen tonight. I think he's interesting to dig deeper into to make sure I'm not missing anyone. But I think the real guys I'm hitting here are Clarkson and Collins and a little bit of THT and moving on.
You can make a case for Olynyk and THT. They see decent minutes. I'm not a huge fan of their price tags. I've been liking them in that 4K range, but they're viable on a slate like this. And one more guy who played better than he has for most of the season last game was Colin Sexton. So he could be like one of those sneaky, cheap guard plays. He looked really good last game.
Yeah, Sexton's interesting. He's one of those guys who comes off the bench and can be electric. He's played around 20 minutes this year in most of their games, which is about what you expect from someone coming off the bench. And especially in that blowout yesterday, he was able to get to 36 points, and he was a focal point of their offense. So you're right. He's one of those guys that on a slate this size, it's good to have a little bit of exposure to a guy like that. Anyone else?
I think that's it for me.
Yep, same here. Next up, we have a game from earlier this week, the Spurs and the Suns. I feel like yesterday it was super easy to just write off the Cleveland and Knicks game, whereas it's a little bit harder to just write off this game on this slate. I think we kind of have to get some exposure to it. At least I'm planning to. For the Spurs, they're healthy. No one's really popping too much because there's no injury or anything like that. But who are you liking from this team?
I'll start out first by saying I am staying on the Victor Fade train. He's another guy where I'm just not understanding why DK is keeping him near the 8K range. So he needs to be like $1,000 to $1,500 cheaper than what he is. So wanted to start out with that.
I like that you started out with it because I was going to ask you about it, as you know. And I think you already know I'm playing him, right? Like, yeah, yep. I'm doing it. Well, it's a 4-game slate. He's probably going to be 10, 15% owned. And we know he has the 50-point upside. He didn't get there on Tuesday, but I'm going right back to it. And 20% of him won't kill me. So I'm totally fine doing it and having fun while I'm doing it. What about the other guys, though? Like Vassell and Johnson, Collins, Sohan. Any of these guys getting on your radar?
It's always hard for me to go here when this team is healthy and their prices aren't really at a good point. Like Vassell at 6,800 is going to be tough to play. I'd be more willing to play Keldon at his price. Mm-hmm. Collins is worth a consideration too, but I'm not going to really like it getting to them. Yeah. Trey Jones, I guess he's viable tonight too at that price tag. He's seeing some decent minutes, so I'll probably be fine with whatever I get on him.
Yeah. One thing I'll add about Victor too is that it is a purely GPP play. His minutes have been a little bit all over the place, and that's why B-Dubs is saying he's overpriced. If we ever see consistency on those minutes, which is what I'm hoping for and kind of betting on, literally, is 30 minutes more, and then that's what I'm kind of hoping and betting on that upside. Outside of that, I'm right there with you. There's no one to really get excited about. I think Collins, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting plays here. We saw him have a decent game against them last time around, but he's just very involved for this team, and that's kind of why I'm interested in him. Johnson as well, like you mentioned, but there's not really anyone I'm excited about or that I plan on going out of my way on outside of Victor. Is it safe to go to the Suns?
Yep.
For the Phoenix Suns, from an injury news standpoint, Devin Booker might play today. He's questionable. Does that make you more interested in the Suns or less interested in them?
I would be okay with getting to some Booker if he plays, but if he does play, that makes all these other guys very uninteresting because they're pretty much priced up with Booker and Bill being out for most of the season. So they're going to be very unappealing plays too. Excuse me. So I think you can make a case for well, hopefully, if we get Booker out, you can make a case for Gordon and Grayson. They've been looking pretty solid so far. Goodwin, he didn't start last game, so might be hard to get back there. He didn't look good last game. I know you're an Okogie fan. I don't mind getting back to him as well too. He still had a decent price tag, and then Eubanks would probably be my other favorite cheapie on this team.
Yeah, okay. Okogie was okay last time around. His shot still wasn't falling to the degree that we would need it to for him to break the slate. I'm not getting to him if Booker plays, but if he doesn't, well, not that I'm not getting to him, but he's not going to be a priority for me if Booker plays. But if Booker doesn't play, I'm loading up. I'm going overboard, core play, Josh Okogie. That easy for me. I'm not even going to second guess it. KD, for some reason, has been facilitating here lately and hasn't been aggressive. He lost the game for them on Tuesday. Narrative here. If Booker doesn't play, I assume KD's really going to want to get this game into shape. They were blowing this team out. I expect him to dominate on this slate if Booker doesn't play. KD's usage rate has also been going down the last few games, which makes absolutely no sense, which is why I think this is a fantastic get right spot for him if Booker doesn't play. So a lot of ifs and hopes and dreams, and we'll have to wait and see if any of it actually pans out. But KD will, along with Okogie, will be a core play for me, or at least a leverage play for me if Booker doesn't play. So I actually am excited about those two plays. Outside of that, though, don't love it. Don't love a lot of these pieces, especially if Booker plays. It's really just take some shots on Booker and just kind of play some of the guys from the other games here for me.
Yeah, it's crazy because you look at this game total and you're like, oh, this highest one on the slate. Let me target this game. And then you look at both sides and the prices of everybody. And then you're like, it's
DK made it hard today without any injury news. They're really just kind of forcing the issue for us. It looks like we got some Otto Porter and Precious news. Are you seeing that at all anywhere?
Yeah, I did see that.
Does that change anything for you or no?
Like I said, I think that makes Podol a little more solid of a play, and then Boucher as a value punt.
Yep, I agree with that. Awesome. And Philip is asking, any love for Nurkic? Brandon, any interest in him?
I'm sure I'll have some. He looked pretty solid last game against them, so I don't mind getting back to him.
Yeah. So interest, not love. We're not ready to solidify it yet. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for sticking it out with us. Look forward to seeing everyone later on the pre-lock show. Again, if you want access to that, click the link in the description, promo code BDUB. And then if you're not able to join that, we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. We have an interesting slate on deck. First, one of these in-season tournaments that they're running. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.